On this week's episode of NY Seed Round, I had Phil Rosen. He's an award-winning reporter who's penned over 2,000 bylines and written 2 best-selling books, all before he was 25. Most recently, he was a senior reporter at Business Insider, where he wrote one of the most popular financial newsletters in media. One of the main reasons I wanted to talk to Phil is that he recently took the leap and started his own media company called Opening Bell Daily with Anthony Pompliano. Plus, he runs a club for journalists and reporters called Journalist Club, where they meet, build meaningful connections, and also discuss the current state of media, which I talk about a lot with Phil in this episode, and what his career can teach us about the 10,000-hour rule and how it can make you better at anything from storytelling to pitching investors to building products. I hope you enjoy the conversation with Phil as much as I did, and tell me, what are you dedicating 10,000 hours to right now? Phil Rosen, previously from Insider, now building a couple of ventures of your own.
Yep.
Thanks for joining me. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
So I love the post that you published a couple days ago talking about your time at Insider, just reflecting on writing 2,000 bylines. It strikes me as that's the 10,000-hour rule. You do something for a long time, you must learn a little bit about it. What are your biggest reflections on doing that, and what did it teach you about writing well?
That was a very heartfelt post, I think, and I didn't know I was writing it at the time. But then when I was trying to count up how much I had done in 3 years at Business Insider, it sort of struck me like, okay, if I was doing this many stories a day, this many a month, that adds up quite quickly. And I think the things you get good at are just the things you do every day.
Mm-hmm.
And I just happen to be writing about financial markets every single day. So after a few years, I became pretty handy at it. Yeah, I think the biggest takeaway, really, it's not so much about my own writing or even my own reporting, but it's that if you spend enough time doing anything, you can probably get very strong at it. And that gives me a lot of confidence for doing anything else moving forward, because I know if I just take the time to do a lot of volume, then I'll be probably okay.
Yeah, even the small things like keeping attention, writing a good hook.
Business Insider is super good at headlines and getting a reader's attention.
Yeah.
And I really learned how to do that when I came in there, because I was coming right out of grad school. And in grad school, you're not really focused on that type of writing. But when you get into a big newsroom and they sort of teach you how, at least I felt, how things are really done in a big company. In my first 3 months at Business Insider, I learned more than I did in all of school.
Wow.
And and a lot of that also, they're super good at reps. Like, they just put you right into it, and you're getting reps every day for, I was probably pitching at least 5 headlines a day for 3 years, or 3 headlines a day for 3 years. And it gives you a lot of confidence.
That's awesome. Yeah, we'll get into some of the exciting ventures you got going on now. But maybe if there's a journalist or two, or some of my reporter friends are watching this, what, in your mind, having been in a newsroom and seeing it firsthand how media is changing and audience building, what does a future career in journalism look like?
That's a great question. I do think it's so worthwhile to be in a big newsroom because of the people you can learn from, and you have great editors and great reporters around you. And you also, I think there's a lot of value to be had in institutional knowledge. Like, you should know what it is, and at least what it's trying to tell you and teach you, before you disregard it or try to strike out on your own.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a big push, I know, for independent media and creators kind of going to do their own thing these days. But I definitely value my education in a big newsroom so much, because if you can see how the pros do it, I think you're miles ahead when you try to do it on your own. Versus, if I had left grad school and then just tried to strike out on my own, at that point, I would have got smashed.
It's just that raw hours of doing it and the being around people, so learning by osmosis, pretty much.
It's a lot of that.
Yeah.
It's sitting next to people or having the same conversation every week with the same editors, and just learning how they think. Because when I was there, all my editors had so much experience, and they had all been in different newsrooms, and Business Insider was not their first stop.
Yeah.
So that was also really helpful to be around, because I've really only had that job in media, and it was helpful to know at least through others, what it's like to work in other places.
When I was first starting in my career, I started a PR agency. Reporters and PR people have interesting relationships,
Totally.
that sort of thing. But in the PR side and working with clients, everything was like, this was circa 2015, 2016. Everything was on earned media. How can we get more press coverage, traditional press coverage? And I think we're seeing this transformation towards more owned investment in building your own audiences. For startups, founders that are out there maybe listening to this, how do you view the value of like earned media versus owned? Where do they come into play for each?
I mean, earned media, I think for now has a very strong role still, because if you're a startup or even a non-startup company, you need press if you want investors, for example, or just getting the word out. I think beyond Twitter or LinkedIn, being in the papers helps a lot.
Yeah.
And there's something you can't invent with your own audience about the credibility of being in a Business Insider or the Times or the
It's
Journal.
social proof.
It is. Yeah. And so that I don't think is going away anytime soon, but I also think having your own audience it's never been easier, but it's never been more important, because there are independent writers out there that have bigger newsletters than some of these newsrooms now, or bigger Twitter followings than some of these entire newsroom organizations. And that's not nothing. Like, maybe it's not the same as getting your name in the New York Times or your company name, but it's still a huge number of eyeballs. And, and also if you're a company, that's a huge number of customers or readers or, whatever it may be.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I commend you. Like, you're going above and beyond your day-to-day. You've written 2,000 bylines. You've written a couple books. You have invested in building your own audience. And it feels like with this new venture, Journalists Club, I want to talk about that for a little bit. You started this group, this community group for reporters, journalists to come together. What's the objective of the group?
It was actually sort of an accident that it came about. I was speaking with our mutual friend, Andrew Young, and he was just telling me to just start a group chat, and that's how it sort of started. But then it turned into a dinner and then a few dinners. And we have our first event coming up. That's going to be everyone that's been to a dinner is coming to the same happy hour. That's going to be really exciting, I think. And I'm very nervous, but having, who knows how many reporters are going to show up. But I think it'll be really exciting just to get that many people in the same industry in the same room. And something that I have been trying to focus on is meeting more people that do what I do. Yeah. So you have your coworkers, and you have your editors and your managers and everything. But I have found it for myself, I didn't really meet that many people in other companies that, other reporters covering what I was covering or
going through the same challenges.
Yeah. And so that's really been a cool thing that has come together, because I've met a lot of people that work at all these different outlets who, I didn't know anyone at these companies or outlets before, and now we've had dinner together, and a lot of them plan to come to more events, and that's it's really special. And I think one reason it's maybe caught on so early, because it's nothing crazy. It's actually just dinners, people getting dinner together in groups. Yeah, there seems to be just a really high demand for in-person activities and like hanging out with people. I'm very careful to not call them networking events too, which I think people appreciate that, because if you work all day, you don't want to go to dinner just to work more.
I think community is a better focus.
Yeah. Community is definitely the word for it. And people you can talk to that can support you or like give you advice.
Yeah.
Maybe help you get a job, but people that aren't your coworkers already.
So on the job piece, there are a couple of things I want to touch on there. So like, reporters, there's a lot of change happening in the industry. Are these like conversations that are being had at dinners? Like, how are people evolving with these changes? Are some folks struggling with the transformation to more like owning your own channels on social?
Yeah, trying to build your own personal brand as a journalist. And I think that it can sound a bit icky when you talk about it, but as far as, journalists, we have our byline or our, video coverage out there almost every day. And the profession with the biggest upside with a personal brand, I think, is probably media professionals.
why is there a nickiness to it? Like you see successful folks like Kara Swisher, for example.
I think because it feels so unconventional right now. The people that used to have personal brands or people that knew them for them rather than their byline were the people in 60 Minutes, you know, the really famous sort of legacy journalists. But now that's really becoming democratized. And
Yeah.
there's a lot of journalists that I'm friends with who have huge Twitter followings or LinkedIn followings or like TikToks even. And that's a really interesting thing to think about because it's, you know, you wonder, okay, can you maintain your credibility as a journalist while you're also becoming very, very human to your readers?
Yeah.
So I think that's a really new sort of frontier in media that I don't know what it means. And I don't think that many people do. And I think we'll have to give it another few years to see if, you know, maybe the personal brand or independent push is not the right thing to do and takes you out of being a journalist.
Yeah.
I think that's possible.
Some just want to focus on writing and reporting and doing good stories, and it like requires other muscles potentially.
I think so. Yeah, I do think there's a danger of like, if you're so focused on building an audience or building a brand,
you're not writing.
And the work just goes away. So,
man, that's a difficult balance.
Yeah.
Wow. So if you're a founder listening to this and maybe you've decided that a good way for our brand to build strong awareness is by investing in community building, what have you learned in the short time that you've been leading this community and building one that, you know, as tactical as possible? What have you learned about it in the process?
Momentum is huge.
Yeah.
Like when I did the first dinner, what I tried to do immediately that night was I put everyone on an email chain and everyone got everyone's information already. And I immediately started planning the next dinner. If you leave too much lag time between events, I think it's really easy for, you know, myself and everyone just get busy. I've done maybe 4 dinners in like 6 weeks or something like that.
Yeah.
And that felt like a pretty good clip. And I met so many amazing people. A lot of people came twice to the dinners. So that was really, it's been great. And I definitely am excited for continuing to do that. And also I think something tactical is the like following up with people is very easy, but super easy to forget as well.
Yeah.
So something that I've really appreciated is, you know, when guests that become friends or colleagues, they follow up with me after dinner. And if not, then I'll usually reach out and text them something from the dinner or ask them if they want to join for another event. And that might not sound like a genius advice or anything like that, but I think just momentum and
just back to basics. Like,
it's like
people overcomplicate things sometimes.
Yeah. I think I tried to overcomplicate it at first, and I was trying to think of all these ways to, you know, put social channels and get everyone on the same, like, you know, WhatsApp or LinkedIn page, whatever. But really it's just about, I think now I've learned after a handful of events, just getting people together in the same room is really where the fun is and the best part of it. It's less about like, you know, make sure we're all connected on this platform, that platform, whatever. Like it's the dinners are pretty special.
Definitely underselling. I think you are really good at like building digital community as well. Like in between when the events aren't happening, like your social profiles, you're building memory linkages for people and it's like resonating. I see other reporters like tweeting about it. So I think there's like, I've just observed, I'm learning from you. It's like, how do you fill the space between those events and still build those memory linkages?
That's a great question. I actually, I didn't know I was doing that, but I suppose it's maybe part of it is just habitual at this point. I just try to, you know, write about the things I'm doing, and maybe that's a lot of what you're seeing or what comes up on social media. Something I think that maybe shows up in my whole life is that I just write every day.
Yeah.
Every morning I'm writing, and that shows up in blog posts or in my work or on socials. And a lot of that I think is just the glue to my life. I just have to get my thoughts on paper and
Makes sense.
try to, you know, practice as well my own craft, I guess. And
I mean, reporters are getting pitched all the time. What is your sort of one sentence pitch to why journalists should get involved with Journalist Club? What value can they get out of it?
That's a good question. One sentence is always hard.
Maybe 2, 3.
I would say if I had to put it in one sentence, it would be make friends in your own industry, and that might be it.
That's great.
Actually, so,
You've written so many words in your career, and you receive a ton of pitches. Like, we love New York City founders specifically.
yeah.
Like, you've been on the receiving end of pitches. Like, how can founders who are listening to this get better at telling their own stories? What are the maybe mistakes you see, or what are the tips that you want to give them?
Well, I think the first step to telling your own story is to actually try to tell it. Because I think I have friends and other founders that maybe they don't put themselves out there enough, or they don't feel confident enough to put their own thoughts or ideas in public, which I think is the first step to telling your own story. Like, even if no one's looking, I think you should still be documenting and telling, and just to practice getting better at telling your own story.
Yeah.
Part of that too is getting over your own fears or hesitations about, like, do I have anything worthwhile to say or to write, or who's going to listen to me? These are all the things I used to think when I started writing, maybe 2018.
Yeah.
Just writing online on a blog, and I was super scared, and I was like, no one's
You're putting yourself out there.
Yeah. And at the time I'd never done it before, but I knew that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a writer, but I didn't know how to be a writer other than just start writing every day online. And and I think the lesson from that is, if you just start doing it, then you'll get better at it, and that's when people will pay attention. So it's better, I think, that no one pays attention when you suck.
That's right. I think, like, one of the great lessons, like, you are the 10,000 hour rule personified. It's like, give yourself the reps. Like, if maybe you publish some duds early on, but, like, I mean, even that right there is a hurdle and a reason why many people quit.
Yeah.
What's your message to them when they think of doing that?
Yeah, it's I think if it's important to you, you'll just keep going. Or if you want it to be important to you, then you will keep going.
Yeah.
Maybe that's part of it. I think there's something really magical about doing something for so long with no results, and then all of a sudden you get a ton of results at once.
It's delayed gratification.
Yeah, delayed gratification. And I always like the idea, it's like any success or accolade is a lagging indicator, because you didn't get the thing because, the day before you did something. It was probably years of work or effort or just reps of something that you probably couldn't even picture would lead to that accolade or success. And everything is just, it's like, how much time are you willing to put into this? It's probably proportional to, like, what you'll get out of it.
This is a selfish question. I
Sure.
love reading. I love writing. I got into comms because I love writing. And some days, I'm sure some founders or others that are listening, like, may experience this, where you just hit a blank. You write every single day.
Yep.
How do you break through the blanks?
Eventually it's just habit.
Yeah.
But when you're I probably got really good at not having writer's block maybe 2 or 3 years into it. And
was it a single moment, or was it just like,
no,
recognizing
there's no single moments. Everything is a grind all the way through. And the easiest way to get around writer's block, or feeling like you have nothing to write, is to write about why you have nothing to write. So if you sit down and you think, you're like, I have nothing to write, well, then tell the page that. You could say, I have nothing to write because, then you just finish the sentence, and you maybe add another sentence about what you had for breakfast, or maybe what you had for dinner last night, and what you're thinking that moment, and why you think that you have nothing to write. And if you just write about the thing that you think is stopping you, that's a really good way to just get into the rhythm of writing. And eventually that feeling might go away. So
got it. Maybe one last question on the founder piece, like, especially those that want to get better at, like, telling their story. Are there qualities of a good story in your mind? I know there's, like, hero's journey, there's conflict, there's tension. Any creative things you've ever seen, or techniques that folks have used to tell their story in an effective way and connect with an audience who maybe is starting at zero knowledge?
Yeah, I think what I learned in journalism, especially, and at Business Insider, you need to get to the point.
Yeah.
The story has to, you have to punch right away, or else the reader or the viewer will tune out, because you haven't told them why they should be listening or reading or watching. So if you look at any action movie or any good show, the first 5 minutes is usually very excellent, and that's your hook essentially.
That's how they get me.
Or yeah, and in journalism we call it a lead.
Yeah.
Your first sentence has to hook the reader, and if you don't get to the point and hook the reader, then your story's not going to get told or read anyway. So something that, and I used to do this so much when I was first starting writing, I would meander over like 5 paragraphs, and then I wouldn't get to the point until like halfway down the page. But by then, no one's even there anymore. It's just me.
Is part of that like how we're taught to write though? I remember in like middle school, they're like, write your intro, write your 3 body paragraphs, write your conclusion.
Yeah, that stuff doesn't work.
Yeah.
It's very
It's like a
academic.
pyramid now that you have to like capture attention fast.
Yeah.
And I can't tell if that's because of the internet or I don't know.
It's if you read like a breaking news story, for example, there was an earthquake today in New York.
Yeah.
The first sentence of that story would be, there was a 4.7 earthquake in New York City today. And that's the point. That is the story in the first sentence. And then you can get into the background, the color, the setting, maybe the people, the characters. But if you don't, there's another phrase in journalism, it's called burying the lead.
Yeah.
And that, you don't want to do that in any story, any press release, any movie, any type of media. You have to punch right away.
Founders may feel like they want to like it requires so much like backstory and stuff. They want to like really tell you the story, but
yes,
what I'm hearing here is just what's your one-liner? Get your one-liner and open the facts from there.
If you a really good exercise I like is whatever you think your idea is, try to put it into one sentence.
We did this earlier.
We just did this with Journalist Club, and if you can't put it into one sentence, it's probably not specific enough of an idea, which means it's not strong enough of an idea, probably.
Right.
There's some exceptions, but probably. I think all of the world's biggest companies could do it very easily.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to say the obvious. I look ridiculous right now, but you
no.
showed up in the suit and I wanted to match your energy in my own way.
Thank you.
And it's because it's very like oriented toward this new venture that you're doing with Pomp around business news. Could tell us a little bit more about it.
Yes. So last week I quit my job at Business Insider.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And I co-founded a new financial media outlet with Anthony Pompliano, and we're very excited about it. It's called Opening Bell Daily, and right now it's built around a newsletter that goes out every morning, which I write, and it's essentially your financial news and everything you need to know that day. It'll make you smarter for sure. I get smarter writing it.
I mean, just following your Twitter, I feel like I'm an expert on all things Jerome Powell at this point. Just from personal experience.
Yeah, I'll take that as a compliment. But we believe there's something we can offer for free to readers that is premium information about markets, investing, and finance that, we think we can do a really great job of that. And readers will not have to try to get around paywalls or, ask their reporters friends at the outlet to send them screenshots of their stories because they can't read their stories, for example. That's what I had all the time. So
yeah, I was going to ask, like, you've had a massive amount of experience writing quantitatively, qualitatively, but then also building your own audience, like, as an experience. Like, I feel like a lot of those learnings are coming together with this new venture.
I think so.
Yeah.
I'm super excited. I'm super nervous, but I'm very confident that all the things I've done in the last 7 years have led to this. And, I started my blog and there was literally 0 readers, but then 6 years later, there's a small but active audience. And then on socials, like, I think people that know me actually know me less about my anything I write about in particular. They just know that I write a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I think volume is definitely what I've leaned into over the years, and
it's a competitive advantage.
Maybe. It's I definitely see it as probably my biggest strength right now, is just that I have put in a lot of hours and reps into being the best writer I can be and executing well. And I don't think I have actually any expertise in anything other than I will just write or like produce at a very high volume. And through volume, I will do something hopefully effective.
I mean, that's a highly valued quality with startups. It's like you can teach the domain expertise, you can't teach like grit and hard work.
But yeah,
Just sort of this endurance. Like outside of row, I coach rowing, and it's like one of the most painful sports there is because you're just doing this painful exercise for a long time.
Yeah.
I feel like it teaches you how to like just be uncomfortable for longer as you're learning. Yeah.
I mean, rowing is also one of those sports where I imagine a lot of times you can't see or conceive of the end because it just hurts so bad.
Well, you're facing the opposite direction. Like,
oh yeah,
as you're rowing, you don't see the finish line. You just see either teams are in front of you or they're past you.
That's a great analogy. I mean, to trying to be good at anything.
Yeah.
You can't see where you're going, but as long as you trust, you're going to, hopefully do the work to get there.
Yeah.
That's what is important.
Well, we're really excited for you. We appreciate you coming by, and we're rooting for you. We love New York City founders. So
thank you. Thank you.
Thanks for stopping by.
Really appreciate it.